Hello and welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast, hosted by Daryl Dittmer, where we talk about the fight or fights that so many of us engage in this lifetime, as well as ways to potentially relieve ourselves of those fights. Let's get started. Welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast. My name is Daryl Dittmer. Today I'm joined by CJ Moneyway, creator and producer of the CJ Moneyway podcast and founder of CJ Moneyway Entertainment, Inc. As an author and public speaker, CJ brings wisdom, creativity, and charisma to all pursuits in which he engages. So great to have you on, CJ. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Man, thank you for having me on today, Daryl. Man, I appreciate it.
No, my pleasure, man. We had a great conversation when I was on your show not too long ago, and I thought, you know what, I got to have CJ on because we talked about my story, and I just you can feel it when somebody has a story and they've got a great thing to tell, and I know you have that, and I'm looking forward to digging into that. So if you don't mind, if you just tell us where you came from and why you are where you are today, and some of the things that may have happened, and we'll just kick it back and forth from there.
Oh man, first I just want to say I appreciate, I'm glad that you had a good time on the show, that it was good enough for you to welcome me on your show, So I appreciate that. But yeah,
Thank you.
man, so I'm from Gary, Indiana. Born and raised in Gary, Indiana. Now I live outside of Gary. My mother still stays there. Grew up in a two-family home, mother and father. Not, life is what it is. But I was fortunate enough to have a father figure in my life, my whole life. Somebody that I looked up to, somebody that I admired, and was able to. I'm not gonna say that I picked up everything from him as far as being the man of the house and supporting your family and being that person. Those some of the things that I may have missed in life, until I got older. And so, a lot of times people say that if I had a father, I would have did better, or I wouldn't have been this way, and I wouldn't have been that way. I'm here to say that, you know, like I said, I had a father in the household, and I still strayed away. And I
Mm.
went out and I stayed in the streets and ripped and run. I had kids, I had a lot of kids on the way. And so that was my journey. And so when I got there, man, when you get into certain situations, sometimes you have to get pulled. And it wasn't until I went into Detroit in 2000 that the Lord and yes, the Lord called me and pulled me to the side, because sometimes you just have to get away from your environment. Like sometimes you can be called to do something, but because you're doing things all the time and you just repeatedly doing things, constantly, I'm drinking, I'm smoking, I'm out there messing around with the women, I'm cheating on every woman that I ever been with, and all this stuff, it caught up to me. And so at this point, he drew me from that situation, and I went to Detroit. And when I went to Detroit, I was able to realize that I had a talent that I didn't even know that I had. That's when I began writing. I began writing in the year 2000. The book that I have published, I just had it republished in May of this year. It was actually published in 2015, entitled "Both Eyes Open and Both Eyes Shut." And there, the funny thing about it is, I never liked school. I never liked school. I mean, I went to college. I messed my parents' money up and things of that nature. But then I began writing. But I was always a creative person in drama in high school and things like that, doing plays. Even in church, was still doing plays. So I always had that creative mindset, things of that nature. When I was younger, used to dance, used to be Michael Jackson, putting on shows for Christmas and things of that nature. But then it came back to me. And so as I started writing, I was writing like character forms and things of that nature. And so then I started reading the Bible. And once I started reading the word of God, then things started coming together. So as I went back and started uh, putting reading the scriptures, I'm reading the stories. I'm like, wait a minute, this fit here, and that goes there. And so it was just amazing to me how the mindset just went and how I sat down at that time. But like I said, I started writing in 2000. But so I kept all them notes and I stayed organized until actually I got it published in 2015. But after I got it published November 15th, 2015, my father passed away November 22nd, 2015. And so at that point, man, it was, it was a, I say Debbie Downer. It was a downer. So as far as promoting the book or even having any interest in it, I really wasn't feeling it because my father was the one who I actually would lean on and show him some of my, some of the stuff that I was writing or whatever. And I never forget there when he told me, he say, hey man, he say, if nobody ever reads your book, he say, as long as you set out and did something for yourself, he said that's all that matters. And that always has stuck with me until this day.
Very cool. Very cool. No, I love that, and I lost my dad in 2013, so not too far different as far as the time frame goes, and honestly, one of the most devastating times in my life, other than when I lost my mom. But those just those few moments that we have, right, that shape us and that make our lives different from that point forward. And quite honestly, I cannot imagine trying to get a book out there when something like that just happened. There's just no way.
Yeah, it was hard, man. Like you say, that was besides my grandmother passing away, that was a hard one for me. And anybody that lost a loved one, especially in the beginning, some days you have good days and some days you just have bad days where you just crying. Like all of a sudden you just crying for no reason, but it's a hurt. But as time goes on, time heals all wounds and although I miss him and he's still here, as you see, I still reminisce about him at times because it's things that, as a father myself, it's things that I try to pass down to my children that he tried to instill, that he actually instilled in me. But as a kid coming up, at that time, sometimes you listen, sometimes you don't. Go in one ear and out the other. But then you look back on life and you say, man, I wish I had listened because I'll never forget. And I tell my kids this all the time, especially my oldest son. I say, he used to always say, if I knew now, well, if I knew back then what I know now, things would have been different. And so my choices would have been different. I probably would have, instead of going to school jacking off, I probably would have went to school and made something of myself, got an education, got a degree. But I was living in that time, man, where none of that was really, I'm just being honest, wasn't none of that really a factor to me. I just wanted to go and have fun and go kick it with the ladies. That was my life, and it turned out in the long run that was my pitfall too. That was my pit. That was my pit moments.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, I know you read my book, and I can't wait to get your book. I'm gonna grab that soon. I can get that on Amazon.
Yeah. Amazon.com.
We'll talk about that a little later too, in terms of finding your work. But I'm amazed at how life teaches us and life changes us, and we don't. I wasn't a great listener, as you know. I love that you brought up my sister a little earlier before we hit record, but I still got my eye on her. Anyway, we either learn or we don't, and sometimes it just, I'm a big believer that it takes what it takes to get us where we need to go,
Yeah.
so that our lives can, had I listened, earlier in life, might not be where I am now,
Yeah.
had I, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's important for us to carry through life, is it takes what it takes sometimes to get us to change.
It do. Sometimes I reminisce on the story a lot of Joseph in the Bible and how he had to go through all these different changes before he got to where he was at. And although God could have put him in the kingdom right from wherever he was at, but he had to go in the well. He had to go to the palace. He had to go to the prison where it was lessons learned, And so, like you say, there's things that although uh it could have been a different route had we, what I'm saying, but these are the pitfalls that we had to go through and learn from. Could they have been avoided and we could have still got to the same place? Probably yes, but it just would have been in a different form. And so sometimes, life, like you said, it teaches you lessons. It teaches you lessons. And so as you get older in life and begin maturing, because I'm just gonna say this, Daryl, and I got something coming up at the beginning of the year when I start a new podcast called Thoughtful Dialogue with CJ, man. I'm gonna have to get you on there. It's strictly about men. That's my niche. I'm aiming at the men. And so it says that when I was a child, I spoke as a child. I reasoned as a child. But when I
Mm.
became older, I put childish things away. And one misconception that us as men have is at times, although we grown, but we still at times have a childish mentality. We haven't put childish things away. And so until you put the childish things away in life, you're not grown. You still acting as an adolescent. And so that's one of the things too, as growing in this and going through certain things, you have to look back and look at yourself. You gotta take accountability. And that's another thing that we kind of shy away from in life. We don't take accountability for our own actions. And so when you begin taking accountability for the things that you and done, the people that you and hurt, the missteps that you and took, you say, you know what? This ain't nobody fault but mine. And so once you start taking accountability for that, then you begin to grow and now you can become your natural self because everybody always say, well, I'm real to myself. But at the same time, how can you be real to yourself when you lying to yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, that is the truth, man. I mean, people say when they say something like real to myself, well, you're not being real to the people around you and you're
Yeah.
not being real to yourself because you're lying to yourself. Why are you doing all this foolish stuff? And but it's so easy, right? And I did it for a few years as a kid. You justify, right? And you say, oh, well, it's not that bad, or I didn't hurt anybody that bad or whatever. And it's like, no, the thing that I think and you mentioned it, accountability. I think that what's so important is to be able to take responsibility for everything when it comes to ourselves and our lives and how we're going to change and how we're going to grow. And nobody's coming to save us, right? No matter how
No.
much, right? No matter how much we want it, I don't want
Yeah.
to do it or I don't want to take responsibility for it. Well, nobody else is going to do it, so you got to do it.
You gotta do it. It's the only way you can grow. Nowadays, I think, especially on podcasts and things of that nature, we're talking about personal growth. And so that's like one of the main topics when you talk to people. It's about personal growth and transformation. And so, how do you get to that point? You have to take accountability for some of the things that you have done in life. And if you, like you say, like if I got a friend and I can't trust that friend, then what kind of friendship do we have? It's all about trust. And so the first person that you have to start trusting in is yourself and then God. And if I can't trust those two entities, and then who else can I actually trust, and who else can I actually be honest to if I can't be honest to myself? Like I can sit here and tell Daryl anything, but you don't know what I've been through. I can just say, hey Daryl, yeah, this, that, and the third. But I know that I didn't do that. And so therefore I can tell you a story, but I'm lying to myself. And so what does that justify? Because two
Right.
people you can't lie to. You can't lie to yourself and you can't lie to God. Because he
Yeah.
already know.
Right. There's no such thing, right? There's no
Yeah,
such thing. Lying to yourself or lying to God. Yeah, absolutely. There's no such thing. It's
yeah,
it's not possible. We talk about growth and personal growth and moving forward and I look at life as sort of a leveling up process. You know, I have to continue, I have to learn the lessons that are in front of me. But if I don't learn those lessons, I'm not going to be able to go to the next lesson
Yeah.
and go to the next lesson and go to the next lesson. I have to learn at each stage of those lessons, because I don't know how many times in my life, and you know, I got sober at a young age, straight at a young age, but that doesn't mean I had my head together or I had my life together. That just means I had an opportunity to get it together once I
Yeah.
got rid of the drugs and the drinking and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, then life started coming at me and I'm like, oh man. So, you know, there were many things in life that I didn't learn initially, and the it would be presented to me on a silver platter. Here you go, Daryl, and it would slap me in the face,
Yeah.
and you know, and I had the opportunity to either learn the lesson and do it differently next time, or not learn the lesson and get the same lesson over again. So if we learn the lessons and we do things differently, then we can continue to move forward and continue to grow. But if we don't, it ain't going to happen.
Nah, it's things that we go through in life, challenges, as you say. And when we get to that point, like it's like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to change. You know, so how can I expect to change if I'm doing the same thing? If I'm going out here, I'm smoking, I'm drinking, I'm partying, I'm messing with the girl, but he trying to send me in another direction, but I keep going in the direction that I want to go in. The Bible say, lean not into thy own understanding, but let the Lord direct thy paths, you know, and he'll make our path straight. But at a certain point in our lives, we wanted to direct our own path that was leading us to nowhere. And so I had to get to a point, and sometimes people there would get you to a point too, because uh I don't know about you as far as you writing your book and you doing your podcast, how things are with you with people. Sometimes people whom you think that will support you and that you're looking for to support you, and you know, just gonna try to, you know, encourage you and post your stuff on Facebook and like your stuff on Facebook and Instagram. Them people disappear sometimes.
Mm.
And so it gets you to a place sometimes where, and I know the enemy does that. It gets you to a place sometimes is if what I'm doing is actually worth it. You know, like writing a book, doing a podcast. Like if the people that I know and the people that I've been around and the people that I've loved and the people that I've shared moments with, if they're not interested in what I'm doing, what would make anybody else interested in what I'm doing? And so those are some of the challenges that you have to fight to get through, because you say, you know what? If God had put me in a position to do what I'm doing, regardless of, you know, the people that's around me or the people that is not interested in it, it's somebody out there that's listening. Because as you know, we get analytics, we see numbers, we see what people listening from, we see the cities, we see the countries. And so if you just inspire one person a week on your podcast, you doing what you was chosen to do. Because it also say that 99 of them, one sheep went to the wayside, and he went to go find that one sheep, and 99 didn't go astray, and he rejoiced over that one that was lost more than the 99 that wasn't lost. And so sometimes we are people, or we are persons that go out to just get that one. Get that one that had a situation like CJ. Get that one that had a situation like Daryl. And so they can see, like, man, you know, I didn't know that they went through this and this. Now I thought I was the only one. And so now you got a listener that's following you because they interested in your content to bring more and more, because this is who God has already ordained from the beginning of the earth at this time to talk to you, to listen to you.
For sure, man. No, I could not agree more. When I first started writing my book, and I know it's kind of a, you know, I say it and I meant it wholeheartedly when I first started writing it. I said, you know what, I'm going to write it, and if one person gets something out of it, then I'll be happy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping the same thing with my podcast. I mean, I have had people give me feedback and say good things about it and that sort of thing, and it seems to be going over okay. Although I'm so new, I don't really know, man. I'm trying to figure it all out, but
Hey,
it's cool. I enjoy doing it because I enjoy the interaction, I enjoy the conversations, and I'm a big believer. And the reason I wrote my book is because of the stories. Like, people's stories are what help other people get through their stories, right? Like, I can put together, my book is my stories and what happened with me, but if somebody reads that and they can relate and they can say, hey, I was there, or I've been there, or I'm currently there, it might help them move forward, and that's what I care about.
that's the only thing that matters. And like you say, as far as with this podcasting thing, it's growth, man. You take your hits, you live and you learn. Yeah, I've almost been doing it for a year now, and it's still things that I'm adjusting to. It's still equipment that I still need to get. I'm always looking and learning and trying to implement new things, because at first I just took it as, a hobby. But then meeting people like yourself on Pod Match and all these different other people that I've been meeting, I even had to change my format of where I was going with it to match what I was doing, because you meet so many interesting people that actually want to be like that's doing things like yourself and doing things like I'm trying to do, that's trying to make a difference in the world, not just to myself, but trying to be a difference to people in the world, people that's trying to actually help people that's actually trying to give and show a different direction from where you've been, and this is what you can do regardless of the pitfalls and the trials and tribulations that you went through. If you go through the fire, it's something good that can come out of that. And that's something that we're trying to spread as a message. Like, hey, I've been through some trials and I've been through some situations, man. And I was just telling somebody this the other day, because I try to be as transparent as possible. I was telling somebody the other day, because I had these child support issues since 1996. I haven't got a tax return since 1996. So when people look for tax returns during tax season to get a new car or fix up their house or things of that nature, this is something that I had that is still going through it, that I had to endure. I couldn't cry about it. I can't complain about it. I put myself in that situation. And
Mm.
so you just have to go through. And so when God can make a little a lot, because I tell you this too, dear. I worked in the casino for over 20 years. Okay. Decent money, not great, but decent money. And I also worked at Walmart making $9 an hour. And whew, I was making $9 an hour. But I will say this, and I was just telling somebody this the other day too. I will say this. Regardless of whatever situation I've been in, and I didn't know this until I got older and later and was reading the word, and say, whether I've been up or down, I've been abound or been a base. He said, I've learned to be content in whatever situation I'm in. And as I look back at life, I say, man, not having money, all my check going, leaving to child support, and so. But one thing I noticed in life, man, as I look back there, is that God has never left me nor forsake me, because never have He seen His seed, the righteous, beg for bread, man. I've never lacked. I've always had a nice car. I've always, nice clothes or whatever. I've never lacked anything, even though I lack money. But God provides, man, and that's just something that I want your listeners to know, that regardless of what you're going through, even in this hour right now, if you put your trust in God, you can get out of whatever situation that you in. You just have to put in the work and move forward.
100%. I'm a big believer in, God helps those who help themselves, and he will step it up to, the degree that he feels I need, if I'm willing to put in the effort myself. And I've seen it my whole life. And since I got my head out of my butt. I've seen it, and I didn't notice it so much when I was doing the wrong things,
Yeah.
but he did keep me. He kept me alive. He kept me going. He kept me. He found the path for me, right? Or the path opened up to me
Yeah.
to get better and have a different life. And so sometimes the trials and the tribulations are what we need to have. And I think
Mhm.
about when you talk about that is, I think about Job, right? And
Yeah.
and you mentioned Joseph, but all the trials and tribulations and okay, let's see how much faith this dude really has.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's what came to mind. But you mentioned a word that's near and dear to my heart, which is content.
Hmm.
And to me, life is about um you know for me, waking up in the morning with a smile on my face, but that means content. That means, a little phrase I like, which is when all around and about is seeming trouble. Things can be going wrong, things can be messed up, things can be going ways that I don't think they should be going, but content is that unshakable foundation. And how have you found contentment grow in your life over the years?
Over the years, how I found content is building a foundation with the word, man. I was just on the podcast last week and it was talking about intimacy, bringing back intimacy. And when I began in, I would say 2000. See, I grew up in my mother took me to church all the time. And so that was the foundation that she had laid, because the Bible say that train up a child in the way that they should go. When they get old, they won't depart from it. And I departed from it. Like we say, I was out there doing my thing. I was out there in the streets, and I mean, I wasn't a hustler. I didn't ever sell drugs or anything of that nature. I went to jail. I didn't get in any type of major type of trouble, but I did my fair share of dirt, as far as with women, mostly, and so it was a season 2002. That's when he drew me. I was just yearning. I was going through things, and sometimes in life, there you think that you got everything all figured out, and everything cool. I got a little money in my pocket. I'm driving a nice car. Got a good job, and this and that. And so you thinking too highly of yourself. So on the outside, I'm looking good, but on the inside, I'm hurting. I was
Yeah.
hurting. I was hurting for I needed something. And so that's when the spirit began, like, hey, find a church home. So I found a church home, Pastor Tony Hill, in Detroit, got under him, and I was still doing what I was doing now. Don't get that wrong, because I wasn't fully invested. I was just learning, as we say, a babe in Christ. I was still learning. So I was still out there doing whatever I was doing. And when I came back to Indiana, life started slowing down, because now I'm at the point I don't want to do the things that I want to do. I was just reading that last night, Romans 7, where he say, even when I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do but couldn't do it, it wasn't me that was no longer doing it, but it was sin that was birthed in me that was doing it. So, and when I wanted, saying, it seemed like evil always seemed to follow me, but then life started slowing down for me, Daryl. And so now at this point, I'm like, man, I want to get married. And me and my wife, before we got married, we started going to a church. And it was a few seasons, man, where I was just in the word of God, man. And then, so I was having a intimate relationship with God. And in that moment, as you asked me, like, what was my journey? That was that moment where I was having that intimate relationship with him. And now it has propelled me to, even this day. I'm not saying that I read the Bible every day or I'm a Bible thumper or things of that nature, but just from that time that I was intimate with him, what's in you gonna come out of you. And so what I put in me at that time, it changed my perspective. It changed my outlook on life. And so that was my foundation to get me on a different road, and mainly to where I'm at now.
That's great. I was just talking to somebody recently on a podcast, and we were talking about, just giving ourselves that spiritual nutrition, like to continue to feed ourselves, good things as opposed to bad things. And, whether it's Bible or whether it's some of the other great books out there that can help sort of feed us, and get us to change our perspective and do things differently. And it starts to fill that well of fulfillment and contentment and just, feeling good about ourselves and feeling good about our lives. I don't think there's anything more important than that. And because when you feel that real contentment, not too many people actually end up feeling that way in their lives. I see people flailing all the time, and those are the people I want to try to help. Like, hey, you can have contentment, you can have fulfillment. There's just things you have to take responsibility for doing to be able to get there. So one question I think is I've asked myself, is success. I had a definition of success when I was a kid, and I have a definition of success now. I'm assuming you had the same thing. And what's the difference? What are those things? What did those things look like? What does it look like now? How does that sort of resonate with your soul? All that.
I'm like you said, coming up, and even now, I think that's where a lot of us go to the wayside at. We see success as having a lot of money, or being the most popular. Right now we're in a social media age of having the most likes and having the most shares on your post and things of that nature. Being successful, being around successful people, and having a name for yourself. But to me, that's really not success. Success is, to me, is being able to live a life where after this life is over with, that I'm going to heaven. That's success. Because there's nothing more. We all say that we want to go to heaven. We all, everybody say, when I die, I want to go to heaven. Yeah, we say it, but are you living the type of life that's going to drive you there? Are you trying to live the type of life that's going to get you into the gates? And I don't think most of us are, because we're consumed with earthly success. But the real success is in God, because that's where everything, like you said earlier, you say, when I wake up, I'm content. We don't wake ourselves up. Ain't nothing we do by ourselves that we do of our own. And so success is being able to get in a position where you can help where you can be a covering for your children, a covering for your family, a covering for not just for yourself, but a covering for those who are attached to you, so that if you're saved, they can be saved. And that if your life going right, then God would bless their life, because he say that if we choose him in Deuteronomy, that if we choose God, then he will bless our children. Because life sometimes is not all about us. And so sometimes he use us, Daryl, as front runners to pave a way for those who coming behind us. Because it may be that one that's coming behind 3-4 generations later that we may not even see, may be the one that's going to be successful.
Right. Yeah. And what you were saying is it reminded me of an old saying that I use, and I use this saying to talk about, the fact that people want what they want, but they're not willing to do the work to get there. And the saying is, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to die. Sometimes you got to get your teeth kicked in. Sometimes you got to, do the hard stuff and do the things you don't want to do. Right. I mean, that's how it goes, and that's how it works. And it's kind of it's a tough way to talk about it, but it's true. Did I want to do all the things that I needed to do to put myself in a position where I wake up in the morning where I'm content? I didn't want to do it all,
Yeah.
but I knew I had to do it all. You know, I knew I had to do it all. I knew it was non-negotiable, you know,
Yeah.
and so anyway, we're gonna wrap it up here shortly, man. I swear we could talk for hours, but
Yeah, you know how we get down, man.
yeah, it went by fast. But I want you to please share, if you would, how do we find you out there, and how do we find your media, your book, your podcast, everything? And I'll put it in the show notes as well. But I want people to know how to find CJ.
Okay, you can find me on Facebook, Arthur Corwin Johnson, Instagram, C.J underscore Moneyway, TikTok, C.J Moneyway. Uh, you can find my podcast. You can Google it, C.J, The Moneyway Show, the CJ Moneyway Show, uh, Facebook, YouTube, The Moneyway Show. And like I said, Amazon.com. You can find my book on Amazon.com.
And one more time with the title of your book.
Both eyes open and both eyes shut.
I love that title. That's a great title, man. That is a great title.
Just real quick before we leave, because I was asked that last week, like, what was the subject matter of that title? Where did I come with it from? And as I told you earlier, my father used to say, if I knew then what I know now, things would have been different. And one thing that came from the title is that a lot of times we see things that we probably don't need to be seeing, but then I have our eyes closed to the things that we do need to see. And so, like social media and things of that nature, we got our eyes wide open into this type of world here. And a lot of it miss disinformation, and people just out there doing whatever, showing idea. But the things that we need to see in life in order for that personal growth, in order for that accountability to come about, we close our eyes to that.
So true. I could not agree more, man. It's so easy to get sucked into what 95 or 98 or 99% of people are doing. It's easy to get sucked in, and it's easy to stay sucked in. And the only way to change, and the only way to have something different, is to do things differently. And that's a hard thing to do. But I think we hit that pretty hard today, CJ, which is cool, because people need to hear that. People need to hear from us with the stories and with some experience with change, and making ourselves. I like to feel like we're both in a position to help people at this point in our lives, which is awesome. And I know you are, and I'm doing my best to do the same. So I am going to order your book as soon as I get off this podcast, and I can't wait to read it, man. I got a little bit of a backlog on books I need to read, but I will definitely read it, and I will definitely let you know about it. So thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on today. I'm glad we connected again, and I'm certain it won't be the last time.
Nah, it won't be the last time. Like I said, I want you on my thoughtful dialogue with CJ, man, and I'm coming out with it at the beginning of the next year.
I'd love it, brother.
I appreciate you having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, CJ. Be good, man. Talk to you later.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.